where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio.
Every day you're going and working, running that rat race at that pace and that place will leave a bad taste for anyone, everyone working day after day. So buddy, I gotta say for you, there's gotta be a better way, yeah.
So the New York Times tweeted the results of a poll this past Friday, just gone by, asking people if they'd kill baby Hitler. Would you kill baby Hitler? The entirety of the internet started weighing in. And baby Hitler became a ridiculous trending topic over the weekend. And I figured we might discuss it a little bit today. Also, the phrase politically correct, apparently no longer politically correct. The University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee says it's no longer politically correct to use that term because, well, it's become a way to deflect and say that people are being too sensitive and police other people's language. We'll get into political correctness eating its own tail in just a little bit as well. But we are joined on the show today by our special guest, Sam Firestein. How you doing? Everything good?
It's great. Great to be back.
Sam Firestein is a Hollywood type writer, a producer, director too sometimes, right? Am I correct in believing that?
Those days are long gone. That was epic fail would be a way to talk about my directing career.
About your directing career. But he's a Hollywood type that is sort of, as much as the directorial stuff might have been a bit of an epic fail. He has started another career, which is going rather well as one of the country's premier storytellers. I guess is the best way of describing it. You've won awards from the folks over at the Moth, correct? Which is for those that don't know, for those that don't sort of aren't aware of the storytelling world and your humongous significance in it. Give us a breakdown of what the Moth is and what you've been doing with it.
Well, the Moth is, they really started the scene probably 15, 17 years ago, which was basically gathering people to tell stories based on a theme, true stories from their lives based on a theme. And, you would get a diverse array of stories that people would get up and tell. I don't know, it's pretty simple. And now it's grown into this behemoth where they have shows all over the country, and they're actually now in some of the foreign lands where they speak the English, like the London and the Ireland. And I've won many awards from them, including a couple of CDs, 2 T-shirts, and a tote bag.
Well, we'll continue to go over
because it's storytelling
the finer points
and
of
not
your
music, so they don't really have. I mean, they're a non-profit; they can't give away very much.
We'll go over the finer points of Sam's illustrious storytelling career in just a little bit. Tweet us at ADSXE, at FunkFM. What are you, Sam?
What am I? An Aries?
Your Twitter handle.
Oh, my Twitter handle. Lame old man.
Despite tension between band members during the recording of 1985's Southern Accents, the album was another hit. The controversial video for Don't Come Round Here No More also won the first Best Video Award at the VMAs. Don't come around here no more. After the Heartbreakers' Let Me Up, I've Had Enough in 1987, Petty formed the Traveling Wilburys with Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Jeff Lynne, and Roy Orbison the next year. The group released 2 platinum albums, with Handle With Care becoming their most successful song. Petty released his first solo album, Full Moon Fever, in 1989. It was a multi-platinum smash, featuring the iconic hits I Won't Back Down, Runnin' Down a Dream, and Free Fallin'. The Heartbreakers reformed in 1991 and released the hit Into the Great Wide Open. However, after Petty's 1994 solo album Wildflowers, Lynch left the Heartbreakers and was replaced by Steve Ferrone. The revised lineup was featured on the 1996 soundtrack album for She's the One and 1999's Echo. All things Tom Petty, info, music, and more are on iHeartRadio. Keyword Tom Petty.
iHeartRadio goes one-on-one with Bob Seger to discuss how having kids has changed his life.
It made finding time to write a lot more difficult because they're just so much fun to be around. you know, and they love having me around, and you know, you just can't, certain things you got to see, you know, those little league games and the you know, the soccer and my daughter's cheerleading, acting, you know, singing in shows, both of them, you know, yeah, it's just stuff you can't miss.
Keep listening to iHeartRadio for more Bob Seger and all your favorite artists.
Like most kids from a privileged white upper-middle-class suburban background, for a significant portion of his childhood, he was pretty convinced he was down. AD on the radio.
Yeah, oh, let's go. Talking that mess, better act like you know. Oh, let's go tonight. Walk away, punk, yeah, bitch. That's right, I know this. You're nothing but a punk, bitch. You're nothing but a punk, bitch. So walk away, yeah, yeah. You've been talking about me for a long time.
Sam Firestein is our guest today. He's a writer and a television producer and a regular performer at storytelling shows around the country, around Los Angeles, a multiple Moth Story Slam winner. He was featured in the CBS Radio Storytellers campaign for Fiat. His story, Alaska Bingo, can be heard on the KCRW series Strangers, and he was just featured on the My Former Enemy episode of KCRW's Unfictional. Today, it being the run-up to Halloween, my favorite, most candy-centric of all the holidays. He's going to be telling a Halloween story. Can I do the setup, Sam?
Oh, please. Please.
Okay. 13-year-old Sam in the hospital, massive head injury. How did he get it? I'm guessing we're going to find out. He's standing in an empty hallway when he feels a cold, electric, hateful rage creep over him and start choking him. Started screaming. His eyes snapped open, and he was on a gurney in the ER with a nurse standing over him. And that's how it started. We'll get into how it ended. Very good, Funkhauser. We'll get into how it ended just a little bit. I don't know why. Go on, do it again. I have a feeling that's going to come out a lot recently.
Yeah, okay. Can't predict thunder or lightning.
We've got to come up with like a dramatic phrase that you use that afterwards. We'll figure it out. Anyways, we'll get into that in a little bit. Right now, though, let's Sam being a guy of considerable talent, let's ignore all of those talents and have him guest read the news in our segment, My Witness News. In no way, shape, or form fair, certainly not balanced. Sam, are you ready to read the news?
I am ready to read the news.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. What is A? How are you, and what's going on in the world? B.
How am I?
Yeah,
I was great until I read the headlines.
Oh, okay.
And now I've just lost all hope in humanity once again.
I saw him this morning and said, "Hey, Sam, how's the world?" He goes, "Well, the world is in trouble."
The world's a mess. I just spent my summer traveling some of the troubled parts of the world. And I got to tell you, it's not good out there.
What, you mean like the constant pictures of you with your toes in the sand? With a drink with an umbrella in it? Yeah.
Do you know what they don't tell you in Greece? Do you want to know what they don't tell you?
What did they not tell you in Greece?
That it's goddamn goat's milk that they gave you to put in your coffee.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Is it? What does that do to your stomach, man?
It's not what it does to your stomach. It's what it does to your mouth.
Oh.
Yeah, it was. They took a pretty average, low average cup of coffee and really made it just a bucket of swill.
See, I enjoy goat cheese. Goat cheese, delicious. And one would think that if you enjoyed goat cheese, you would enjoy goat milk. This is not the case. I discovered this the hard way when I was like, this is probably great. Glug, glug, barf. It was, I dove right into my first glass of goat's milk, and then it dove right out of me almost immediately after. That stuff is, I guess it's what you would call an acquired or specific taste, but yeah, not good. Not good at all. But you did travel around the world to some of the more troubled parts of it, I suppose, vacationing in it. Your Instagram doesn't look like, your Instagram did not make it look like the world was in trouble whatsoever, but I guess you dug a little deeper on your travels.
Yeah, I saw some fight when I was floating in the Dead Sea. I saw some fighter jets fly over, which really broke up the tranquility of it. But that was the thing. It's like you're lying in the water, you're floating. It's one of the most tranquil spots, yet you're staring across the border at Jordan, and then fighter jets are flying by, and you find out that, alarms have sounded in another part of the country. And it's one of those regions where at any time anything could happen. At one point early in the trip, I was up at a point where Lebanon, Syria, and Israel all come together, and you're looking at all three countries at once, and there was a bunch of UN vehicles coming over an access road coming back from Syria because we were right by the hospital where they were bringing the wounded out of Syria into Israel where they were getting treated. And, you realize you're only a half a kilometer away from where war is happening.
Mm. So let me ask you this.
You can walk to war? You can take your bike to war?
Well, those Groupon deals are pretty great, but there's a reason
you can
why
take a Segway tour of war. Have you ever been on one of those? Like, I actually went on a Segway tour once. It's like the least rock and roll thing ever. They make you wear those helmets. It's not good. But let me ask you this, and this is part of a larger conversation and probably part of a different show when we talk about your extensive travels this past summer just gone by. But given what you saw sort of up close and personal in some of the more troubled regions of the world where there is sort of like constant death, destruction, war, all of the above, do you still feel as though, well, I mean, I don't know how you felt before, but do you feel that the rest of the world, do you think our involvement in what's going on there or lack thereof is the right way to go?
Ooh, big question.
It is a big question, and it's just, and like it's unfair to ask you for a short answer on this one. But I mean, given seeing the whole situation up close, is it just something that's so self-contained that we can't even perceive, that we can't understand? How could we possibly hope to help? Or is it just such an egregious humanitarian travesty that we just need to get in there and do everything we can? What do you feel like we should be more or less involved after having seen it up close and personal?
Well, quite honestly, I did not see it up close and personal. I was right there, but I really did not see anything. I was a half a kilometer from Syria, but I didn't see any of the war taking place. I didn't see any of even when I was in Greece, I didn't see any of the refugees spilling into Greece. Because again, remember, these are like, some of these areas are pretty vast. And you can be relaxing on a beach on one side of an island when there's mayhem going on in another, and you would never know it. It's like being in Los Angeles during one of the earthquakes where, depending on what neighborhood you were in, you were either affected or were completely unaffected. So I can't say that I actually saw it. But when you say like our involvement or lack of involvement, I mean our involvement or lack of involvement where exactly? I mean, in which one of these tragedies taking place, because there's so many happening right now.
There are, it's you could throw a dart at a map and probably hit something that a lot of people would say, we need to do something about this, or we need to get our troops out of there. But
in some respects, we could say it's like everybody's discussing the refugees and the plight of the refugees that are going through, but a lot of people have been asking the question because Hungary has been getting slammed, and a lot of countries that haven't been taking any refugees in have really been getting slammed for not doing that. But then a couple of questions come. It's like, why aren't any of the Arabic countries taking in refugees? Because for the most part, they're not taking in any. I think one country agreed to accept 15 people. And then on top of that, it's what are we doing to stop what is, leading to the refugees? Right?
Hey, I'm behind on the war, so these are all spoiler alerts. So would you guys just move along, please? Jeez.
All right, let's get on with the news, shall we? Sam, what's going on in Hollywood?
Well, the latest paranormal activity movie bombed at the box office. Can we clean that one up in post?
Sure.
It bombed at the box office. Godzilla versus King Kong movie is in the works.
One at a time. One at a time.
Have you seen any of the Paranormal Activity movies?
I saw the first one.
Nobody saw it coming.
Did you?
Except if you're wearing your 3D glasses, I guess.
Has either of you guys actually go watch movies, or I guess go watch horror movies? Because I see previews for them while I'm watching other things. I'm just like, it all looks exactly the same. It's all you got the creepy sort of stick figure thing that looks like it hasn't evolved since they came up with the idea during The Ring, and then sort of like that. Everything just looks exactly the same in every single horror movie preview that I've ever seen in the last 10 years. It's just horror movie, the horror genre. It sort of feels like they've officially run out of ideas in this situation.
I don't really go to see horror films because I don't get scared. So it's just sort of lost on me. But I did see the first Paranormal Activity because it's probably 3 or 4 years ago. I was home on Halloween and I was sick and I was running a really high fever. So I pulled it up on demand. And I got to tell you, with all the lights out and running about 102, 103 temperature, it was amazing.
Oh, see?
Because when
there
you're
you
sort
go.
of like flickering between consciousness and unconsciousness and, having hyper sweats from a fever, it's a pretty great movie.
Huh. So if you're in sort of like a medical emergency situation, that's the time to go watch horror flicks. But yeah, latest Paranormal Activity movie bombed at the box office. Anybody, I guess, who wanted to sit for 90 minutes and stare at a room where nothing happens could probably just watch the latest Benghazi hearing for free. Go on.
Boop. Boop, boop.
And we can stick with Paranormal Activity and we can discuss the little minutia of the ins and outs of it, or we can move on to the epic blockbuster that's going to be coming our way. Godzilla.
Which is?
Godzilla versus, wait for it, Funkhauser.
What?
Like a dramatic soundbite.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'll do that and then that.
Wow.
And
There's
dramatic
a reason why
looking
you
for
don't
it,
work
yeah.
in Hollywood. No,
the
Godzilla
only one I
versus King Kong.
Oh.
Nice.
So,
Have we ever seen Godzilla versus King Kong yet? Is that a thing?
probably.
I feel like Godzilla's always fighting the giant pterodactyl, Rodan, right?
Rodan, Mothra, aren't there several? I mean, I figure it's kind of like Superman versus Batman, but with lizard outfits. It's really, it's the same thing. It was, didn't we already see this with, what was that last movie? Pacific Rim, right? Where you had giant robots versus giant lizards.
Oh.
Which was basically Transformers versus Godzilla.
Oh, there you go.
So no spoiler alert, but I think they already made this movie.
Yeah.
So.
If you are hell-bent on seeing it, you can, until it comes out, you can watch terrifying old monsters that want to destroy the world go at it during this week's GOP debate.
I see a theme.
Topical, go on.
Sticking with Hollywood.
Oh, good.
Sticking with Hollywood. Star Wars, The Force Awakens again. The trailer was viewed 112 million times in 24 hours by 50 overweight, middle-aged men who have yet to leave their parents' basement or meet a woman in actual flesh.
Seems low, that number.
I think the impressive part is it's like 112 million views in 24 hours, and it never once features someone taking it in the nuts or a kitty cat playing the piano. Like, as far as what usually works in a viral setting, it has none of the above.
Well, there's a little laughing Vader baby in it, right?
Are you so are you not a fan of Star Wars? Is this not a thing? I noticed a certain amount of chagrin and aspersion in your voice when describing it. Not excited about The Force Awakening?
No, I'm really, really, really excited about
You want to hit the snooze button on that?
40-year-old movie. I mean, Star Wars is nearly 40 years old, and there's only ever been one good Star Wars film. Right?
Oh?
Which was Star Wars. Everybody talks about Empire was like this.
I was
going to
say Empire.
Right,
Yeah.
but you know what? No, it's a terrible film because it has no real good beginning. It's just a middle chapter that links a good movie to a Muppet movie because Jedi is really just a travesty. It's a travesty of puppets when you get right down to it. And, all Empire is that one scene with Luke and Pops and getting his hand cut off. And that's it. Because otherwise it's like, who cares? Who cares? It's not a movie. It doesn't have a beginning, middle, or an end. So it's really, and then those last three, I mean, good God, that's how you know George Lucas hates people.
The last three I found to be hard work, and I didn't go see them. I think I saw the first one in the theater, and the rest of them I watched like on demand. And I had to chunk them down into 15-minute segments because I was like, I'm gonna watch Star Wars, gonna watch all of it, but I had to wait. But here's the thing: when the new movie comes out Christmas time, I think I'm going to be I'm gonna watch all of them in the run up to it. I've gone through this thing recently. I've watched every episode in all 2 movies of the X-Files from 9 straight seasons because they're doing an 8-episode miniseries coming up. Did the same thing with Twin Peaks a little while ago. I'm gonna force myself to do the same thing with Star Wars in just a little bit.
This is USA Headline News. I'm Melody Burkett. 5 people are dead after a whale-watching boat sank in Canada. The tour boat was carrying 27 people when it went down near Vancouver Island Sunday afternoon. In addition to those who lost their lives, several others were taken to the hospital. The attorney representing the woman accused of driving through a large crowd at Oklahoma State University's homecoming parade says she's mentally ill. Tony Coleman tells CBS this morning that Adacia Chambers' illness is evident in how she is reacting to the crash.
That's one of the areas that causes concern. It seems as if there's an inability to be remorseful right now.
Coleman says he spoke with the suspect's family, and they say that the person he describes is not the person that they know. Saturday's crash killed 4 people, including a 2-year-old boy, and left nearly 50 others injured. Coleman also says his client was not drunk at the time. Chambers, though, is facing 4 counts of second-degree murder as well as DUI charges. You're listening to USA Headline News. I'm Melody Burkett.
In the beginning, man had to painstakingly brave the elements and scale the highest mountains just to deliver the good news.
Hear ye! Hear ye!
Now they just go to ChristianPress.com. It's fast, affordable, and much easier on the joints. Quickly and painlessly deliver your message with ChristianPress.com. ChristianPress.com connects you directly to thousands of journalists, media outlets, news networks, and social media platforms, ensuring your message hits the mark. Every time, your audio and digital content will be professionally produced, so your business or organization's message stands head and mountains above the rest. So reach your target market and get the results you need with ChristianPress.com or call 316-644-6185. That's 316-644-6185.
Friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your...
Okay, Skippy, you can get off the mountain now. We found ChristianPress.com. Spread your good news. Visit ChristianPress.com today.
It's trending.
This update is brought to you by TrueCar. Find the new car you want, see what others paid, and lock in guaranteed savings from TrueCar certified dealers. Save time, save money, and never overpay. Download TrueCar app today. Check out Week 7 in the NFL. Sunday night it was the Panthers beating the Eagles 27-16. Carolina 6-0 for the first time in franchise history. In late games of note, the Giants beat the Cowboys 27-20. New York overtakes sole possession of first place in the NFC East with that win. Dallas quarterback Matt Castle in his first game with the Cowboys threw 3 interceptions. Raiders over the Chargers 27. They got 37-29. Oakland at 3-3 has matched their win total from a season ago. In early games of note, the Patriots beat the Jets 30-23. New England 6-0. Quarterback Tom Brady had 2 touchdown passes and a touchdown run for the Patriots. Falcons beat the Titans 10-7. Atlanta is 6-1. In college football, the University of Miami fired their head coach Al Golden. I'm Eddie Garcia.
We are
iHeartRadio shines the spotlight on Sir Paul McCartney. McCartney's string of #1 albums continued in 1975 with the release of the Wings album, Venus and Mars. Its singles include Letting Go and Listen to What the Man Said.
Oh, yes, indeed, we know that people will find a way to go no matter what the man said. And love is fine for all we know. For all we know, our love will grow. That's what the man said.
The Wings album, Wings at the Speed of Sound, followed in 1976 and would be the last to reach #1 until 1982's Tug of War. It became McCartney's most successful U.S. album, spending 7 non-consecutive weeks at #1 throughout the summer. Much of the album's success came from the singles, Silly Love Songs, and Let 'Em In.
Someone knocking at the door, somebody ringing the bell. Do me a favor, open the door, and let 'em in. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Keep listening to iHeartRadio for more Sir Paul and all your favorite artists. iHeartRadio goes one-on-one with Mike Rutherford
to discuss the art of songwriting.
I've learned one thing over the years is that actually you can't control it. You can't force it. You can't analyze it. You can't worry about it. You just go and have a good time and mess around, and then something comes along and you grab it. It's something intangible. And if you try and make a program on how to do it and do it better, you get lost. So it's like a free-form thing, which you can't control. You just let it ride or not ride. And if it's not working, then you just have a break. That's what I've learned.
Keep listening to iHeartRadio for more Mike Rutherford and all your favorite artists.
Real Radio 104.1.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD again. Nobody rock a party better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD again. Nobody rock a party better than me.
So, Sam Firestein is our guest on the show today. Writer, TV producer, regular performer at storytelling shows around the world, a multiple Moth Story Slam winner. He was featured in the CBS Radio Storytellers campaign for Fiat. His story, Alaska Bingo, can be heard on the KCRW series Strangers, and he was just featured on the My Former Enemy episode of KCRW's Unfictional. Today in the show, it being so close to Halloween, we are... Well, bear in mind that all the stories told in the storytelling arena, so to speak, they've got to be true, right, Sam? People weed out fiction quickly.
Well, you would hope so, but what I've also learned is that a lot of people will believe anything just simply because they want to believe. So those of us who really know the form can usually sniff when somebody's being a little less than genuine, but... Sometimes you watch audiences just hook, line, and sinker by something that is just egregiously fictionalized.
Well, today's true story from Sam, it being so close to Halloween, involves him as a 13-year-old in a hospital with a massive head injury, standing in an empty hallway. A cold electric rage creeps over him and starts choking him. And he comes to in a hospital bed with a nurse standing over him. That's how it all started. We'll get into that. Funkhauser?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. What?
Hospital,
thunder and lightning?
Rage, thunder.
Oh, sorry. I can't predict thunder.
What's in that little glass pipe you have?
Do you have the thunder and lightning?
No. Oh, wait. See, you can't predict it. You just can't predict it.
Very good.
Wow.
Right now, though, let's continue with the show, such as it is, and discuss political correctness. So, our wildly oversensitive culture is now seemingly a bit of a snake eating its own tail. According to the Inclusive Excellence Center, this is a real thing. I'm not making this up. Sounds like something from South Park, but it's not. According to the Inclusive Excellence Center at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, it is no longer politically correct to use the term politically correct. Why? Well, think about it. If someone called you politically correct, at this stage in the game, you'd probably take it to be an insult, wouldn't you? Anyways, they say it has, quote, become a way to deflect and say that people are being too sensitive and police language. Sam, you work in Hollywood on a regular basis. You spend your time in Hollywood, working in Hollywood, where I would imagine that people seem to be only too quick to mind their P's and Q's in the world of political correctness. Has it now become un-PC in your circles to call someone PC?
I don't know anymore. I've gotten to the point where, in some respects, I'm just afraid to speak because you never know when you're going to say the right thing or the wrong thing, or if there has been a new term has come to light in the last 30 or 40 seconds that nobody made you aware of, and you misspeak something that's 2 or 3 days old, and then you find yourself in a heap of trouble getting beaten down on Twitter.
Yeah, no, it's kind of true. I mean, I think the sad part of it is, the sad part of it is, you know, I know lots of people, myself included, Sam included, Funkhauser included, that have no malice in their heart, that have no ill will toward other people, unless you're talking about Sam's feelings toward the Mets after they beat the Dodgers.
I knew that would happen.
Wow. Oh.
No, but like has no sense of ill will toward anyone, you know, and yet you're afraid to speak your mind because it's just not worth the hassle. It's not worth the risk of getting in trouble. It's not worth the risk of having people jump all over you, being like, "That offends me, sir," or "madam," or whatever the politically correct term is in that particular situation. But it's gotten to the point, I think, and the sad part is that there's people that have absolutely no desire to hurt anyone else in the world that are getting destroyed for saying what's on their mind. And I think that is very, very unfortunate. Have you, and Sam, by the way, probably one of the most generous of spirit people I've ever met. Have you ever been jumped on for being politically incorrect in or around the workplace? Or I mean, you know, bear in mind you work in entertainment, you work in storytelling. Has there ever been an instance where you of all people have been jumped on for anything? Where
Also
like,
knowing
oh,
that we're
God.
in delay and on the air on a radio station.
I can't confirm or deny whether or not myself or somebody sharing a name that immediately resembles my name may possibly have been thoroughly attacked on the internets for something I may or may not have said.
Oh, that sounds clear.
What you may or may not do. What may you or may. What'd you say?
I told us. I'm. You know what? I'm actually afraid to bring it up because I don't want people to Google it and find it. But I told a story. It aired somewhere. It's a funny story. It's true. It's thoroughly absurd, and I may have made mention of somebody's grooming practices in the story. And it became hotly debated in a thread on the website for the show, and people going back and forth, thoroughly bashing me, and just really taking me apart on Twitter and in the thread stream, and petitioning the show to never have me back on.
Nice.
So that was a little bit of joy.
It didn't work, did it?
I'm sorry?
Did it work?
I have not been back on yet. I have not been back on.
Now,
and
I think the
also keep in mind these people, their Twitter handles were not generic names, but they led to no personal information about the people. Like you would Google them and you couldn't figure out who was actually behind these. So they were really hiding behind the anonymity of the internet. So they had no ramifications. There was nothing that could come back to them.
I think I knew that we were in trouble with the political correctness. On the one hand, I don't want to hurt people's feelings, but when RuPaul of all people got in trouble for using the term she-male on her game show, I was just like, okay, this is someone who's crawled over barbed wire and broken glass for her right to be herself and other people's rights to be themselves, and they're beating RuPaul up over this? Yeah.
You know, one of the car companies...
Rock Spotlight, 1975. In June of 75, the Bee Gees released the LP Main Course, featuring a more dance-oriented sound, and delivered 3 hit singles, including the number 1 Jive Talkin'. In July, Fleetwood Mac shake things up. They add Americans Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks to the lineup and have a number 1 album. And Wings released the album Venus and Mars, which goes to number 1. Their U.S. tour features Paul McCartney's first live appearance in the U.S. since 1966.
Love is fine for all we know. For all we know, our love will grow. That's what the man said. So won't you listen to what the man said? He said.
In August of 75, the Eagles' 4th album goes to number 1 and has 3 top 5 singles, including the number 1 title track, One of These Nights. And the boss, Bruce Springsteen, is featured on the cover of Time magazine, and Born to Run becomes his breakthrough album, reaching number 3 in the U.S.
Come on, Wendy, chance like us. Baby, we were born to run.
Keep listening to iHeartRadio for more from 1975. Coming up. iHeartRadio goes one-on-one with Mike Rutherford to discuss the art of songwriting.
I've learned one thing over the years is that actually you can't control it. You can't force it. You can't analyze it. You can't worry about it. You just go and have a good time and mess around, and then something comes along and you grab it. It's something intangible. And if you try and make a program how to do it and do it better, you get lost. So it's like a free-form thing, which you can't control. You just let it ride or not ride. And if it's not working, then you just have a break. That's what I've learned.
Keep listening to iHeartRadio for more Mike Rutherford and all.
Real Radio 104.1.
Now, someone who everybody wants to punch in the face. AD on the radio.
So, like we said, our oversensitive culture is now a snake eating its own tail. It is no longer politically correct to use the term politically correct. It's become a way to deflect and apparently police language. And it's been a way to call people too sensitive. Essentially, it's a way of calling someone a sissy. If you call them politically correct, then you're saying you're a giant sissy Mary or some other sort of like wildly politically incorrect sorts of thing. Other words and phrases they don't like, this organization, the Inclusive Excellence Center at the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Other words and phrases they don't like include third world, since it implies some countries are inferior; crazy, since it's offensive to people with mental illnesses; and man up, since it's sexist. As we were discussing before, I think the real warning sign that the idea of political correctness was self-defeating was the fact that RuPaul, a person who crawled over barbed wire and broken glass, got his ass kicked and then her ass kicked on a regular basis for just being who the hell she is and was. Someone who stood up for a person's right to be themselves like almost nobody else on the face of the planet, got busted by the PC police for using the word she-male in her show RuPaul's Drag Race, which is absolutely just out of this world crazy. What were you saying about the term tranny as it applies to the automotive industry?
There was a company last year, I believe, that was being petitioned. I forget exactly which one, but in their commercials since the 1960s or 70s, they've been saying we're the tranny specialists, and they were being petitioned to stop using that because it was completely insensitive to the transgender community, which I think that was just taking a little too far.
Yeah.
I mean, they're discussing the transmission of an automobile. It's been called tranny since the Model T days.
Yeah. Well, we are going a little too far. But we also going a little too far with time, so we got to get into your story. Are you ready, Sam?
I am.
All right. This is the cost of admission here today. Go for it.
Everybody sit down and get comfortable.
So I was 13 years old, and I'm at a show. There's like 1,000 punks packed into this tiny auditorium, and it is just Thunderdome in there, man. Bodies are flying everywhere, and I'm going for a stage dive. But this bouncer, and this guy was huge, man, and he was pissed, and he grabbed me, and he didn't just throw me. He picked me up, and he had me by the belt and the back of my shirt, and he threw me up into the air, like up, straight up, and I came slamming down head first into a concrete floor, and I came to getting dragged out. Blood was spilling out of my head, and after that I was just flickering in and out of consciousness. I was there were cops and an ambulance and then the hospital and lying in the ER. I was in shock. I'd lost a lot of blood. They had me stabilized, but a neurologist was standing there, and he was saying that if I could make it through the night without slipping into a coma, that I'd be okay. But that was a big if, and they assigned a nurse to watch me. But keep in mind, this was the Saturday night before Halloween, so the ER was packed with people, and she kept getting dragged away. And at some point they wheeled in this football player who was, this guy was wrecked, and that was it. She was gone. And then it was just me alone in my stall. And I don't know how long I was lying there, but I could feel myself starting to go out. And I knew if I closed my eyes that I was going to be in trouble. And I got up. I mean, keep in mind, like I wasn't thinking straight, obviously. And I just thought if I could walk, I'll stay awake. And, you know, the ER, it was, people were rushing in every directions, and it was kind of this maze of curtains. And I saw some doors, and I thought it was the bathroom, but it wasn't. And I ended up in this long hallway, and it was quiet and kind of eerie, and I got really confused, and I wasn't sure what to do. And these paramedics came in. There were double doors at the far end, and these paramedics walked through, and they were pushing a gurney that was packed with equipment. And I was going to ask them for help, but that's when I felt it. It was this cold, swirling, electric rage, and it was pressing on the air next to me, and I got scared, man. It was this just raw, primal, hateful anger, and it started to wrap itself around me, and I was trying to scream, but I couldn't, and I couldn't breathe. I was getting choked. It was like I was getting choked from the inside, and I was struggling, trying to fight against it, but I couldn't, and I was fighting to make a noise. And then as soon as I just got like the smallest noise out of me, it was like, whoa, this horrible rush, like when you're on a roller coaster, and I fell backwards, and a nurse was over me, and she was yelling at me. She's yelling, Sam, open your eyes, open your eyes. And I did, and I was on my gurney, and I'm looking around, I'm on my gurney, I'm in the ER, and I started screaming. You know, and a doctor rushed over, and they started arguing with the nurse, and she was saying that she hadn't taken her eyes off of me, that she'd only been gone for a few seconds. She said I'd never left my gurney. I don't know what happened. I didn't know if I was in that hallway or not. But that was how it started. After that, there was no rhyme or reason to it. But sometimes at night, in bed, I'd be falling asleep, and I'd be in that gray area, hovering between consciousness and unconsciousness. And I'd snap awake, just choking, fighting to breathe, and that swirl, that hate would jump on me, and it would wrap itself around me, and I'd be kicking and screaming. It was hell. You know, I'd be alone in my bed at night, just terrified. But I never said a word about it. I mean, I couldn't. It's like, what was I supposed to say, right? I mean, people, you say something like that, and people are going to think you're crazy. I thought I was crazy. You know, it was happening to me, but I didn't even believe it. You know, and it went on forever. And I wanted help. I needed help. But it's like, what are you supposed to do? I actually looked in the phone book, but it was just, you know, there's nothing in the phone book under paranormal. And you look in, it's really, what am I going to do? Call it gypsy psychic. Like, I was lost. And it went on for years. 15 years. And then one night, I was at a dinner party. Keep in mind, I'm 28 years old. This has been going on since I was 13. And I met a woman, she was a writer, and somebody asked her about an article that she'd written like a year earlier for the LA Weekly on psychics and mediums. And it turned out that she'd spent months immersed in the culture. And I asked her if she'd met anybody legitimate, and she said, I mean, legitimate, she really couldn't say one way or the other, but she said that there was one guy, a metaphysician, Bill Burns, and she just got this faraway look in her eyes, and she said he knew things there's no way he could have known. And I didn't call him immediately. I wasn't convinced, but it took a couple more pretty horrible experiences, and then I finally called and made an appointment. And I didn't know what to expect from this guy. I mean, fortunately, his office was just like a nondescript office in a nondescript office building. There weren't any neon signs or pyramids or dream catchers. And Bill, this guy, totally straight, business casual, no ponytail. Like, if he'd had a ponytail or like a crystal pendant, that would have been it. Like, I would have been gone. But he was really normal. And it just, and he just started, he was sitting behind a desk and he asked me some basic questions, my name, my age, what I did for a living, my parents' names. And when I told him my mother's name, he stopped me and he said, "No, that's not it." Look at him, I'm like, "What do you mean that's not it? That's my mother." And then I stopped. I was like, oh my God. When my mother was 18 years old, and this is going back like almost 50 years from that moment, she changed her name. And I'm looking at him like, what the? Like, how? And he just got this smirk on his face. And he says, he goes, "Now that I have your attention, why don't we talk about why you're here?" And that's when I kind of gave into it. And I just told him everything. I told him about the ER. I told him about the swirl, the night terrors, the choking. And he's nodding along like it all makes sense. You know, and while I'm talking, he closed his eyes and he got this little bit of a quizzical look on his face. And then he just says, "Who's Mitchell?" And I don't know, like Mitchell. And then I'm like, oh my God. And I said, "Mitchell Grief?" And as soon as I said it, the swirl was on me, man. It jumped on me and I could feel that rage. And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's him. That's him." And Mitchell was a kid I grew up with. We were part of this really tight group of kids. We'd been together from the time we were 6 years old. And when we were 12 years old, he died of a brain aneurysm. I mean, and it none of us could make sense of it. I mean, we were just little kids. How can you make sense of that there's something in your brain that can just explode and kill you instantly? And I looked at Bill and I said, "What are you talking about?" And he says to me, he goes, "Sometimes when a person dies suddenly, unexpectedly, the spirit doesn't know what's happened, and it doesn't know that it's dead. And that night in the hospital, in your compromised state, your subconscious opened a window to another plane, and Mitchell saw you, and you became a safe place for him to hide." And I said, like, what, he's just hanging out in the hospital? And Bill's like, no. Spirits that haven't crossed over are on a different dimensional plane, and that night you became a portal. I didn't really know what to make of any of the things that Bill was saying, but the swirl was on me. And then Bill looks at me and he says, "I think he's suffered enough." And Bill started talking to Mitchell, and it was like listening to one side of a phone call. He's saying things like, "Don't you remember? You chose this death. Look at your incarnational blueprint. And, you know, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's all forgiven." And then he says, "It's time you cross over. You know, can you see the spirits that have come to help you? You know it's them. You've incarnated with them many times before." And then Bill stopped talking, but his lips were moving, and he's still moving, and he started twitching. And then I felt it. It was this hard pull, like my insides were being peeled out of me. And I grabbed onto the chair, and I could just feel myself, like, I don't know how to describe it, but I just felt myself getting pulled out of me. I felt Mitchell getting pulled out of me. But the swirl was getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And then it was gone. And it was gone for good. And you know, the thing is, I was there, and it happened to me, and I felt every bit of it, and I still have trouble believing it. But I never felt the swirl again. The gasping, the choking, it stopped. It was over. I never felt it again.
Yow. Thank you so much, Sam Firestein. If people want to check out more of your work online, where can they do that? Super quick.
Go to unfictional.com, KCRW, or Strangers.
Sweet.
How'd that
How are we for time on that?